some of the equity positions I got into were almost accidental. It would be like, I got a deal with the perfect buyer. It's on the ropes. There's an equity gap. The equity gap is about the same as my commission would be. And if I don't do this, that's going to go away and nobody's going to get anything.
This is like we call the acquisition collective, is a group of guys that are probably, if I borrow from your metaphor, from your CRM metaphor, we have a bunch of whale sharks, tiger sharks, and all kinds of a variety of sharks. So I'll ask you about that later. But just to get us started, how do you see the last 5 years in the world of SMB acquisition? How did it unfold? How can you share your inside perspective from a seller, buyer, as well as broker perspective?
And yeah, we can jump right into it. So is this like a subgroup of the?
Yes.
Okay. Go Abundance, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so y'all are all from different groups, but into acquisitions?
Yeah, so the larger Go Abundance splits into these micro tribes. So we have guys that focus on multifamily, we have guys that do storage, we have guys that do crypto, and then our group is all about acquisition, small SMB acquisitions.
Okay. And I think I know Adam. Your name sounds familiar.
I've been on some of your calls with Cody's group.
Okay.
But I also just retweeted one of your old things from this morning.
Okay.
So that might be part of it too.
Right on, man. Well, yeah, I'm a fan of Go Abundance. I've read Tribe of Millionaires like a couple times, and I thought it was, I don't know if it's just because I have daddy issues or something, but it like I like that book a lot, and the main character has some daddy issues that I related with. But I have my own like little backyard meeting group that was kind of inspired by that book, and so definitely like what you guys are doing.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, it's a great community. It's been growing, and I think the longer you're in the group, the more sticky it gets. So just because the quality of the people within the group and the quality of the relationships that get built over time.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, well, for those that don't know, I am a broker, so I help buy and sell companies. I also have sold a couple myself as an entrepreneur, and am in the process of buying them every now and then, or investing in them. So I'm one of the few brokers that kind of eats my own dog food, practices what I preach, or whatever you want to call it, and does participate in deals beyond just brokering deals. So happy to share. I've been doing this full time for I guess 8 or 9 years, and was kind of a serial entrepreneur before that, and now just am a deal guy. So, I mean, you want to just do like a Q&A session, Jay, or?
Yeah. So I'll ask you a few questions, and the guys will jump in, and we'll just go. Usually we have so many more questions than time, so that's why we always keep it going. So yeah, so just tell me what's your thoughts on what happened the last 5 years. It's a big, how did it impact SMB acquisition, and how did it affect the way sellers behave, the way buyers are behaving, and even the whole broker community?
Yeah. So yeah, the last 5 years was, 18, 19 were really strong years with lots of activity. 20 was, we all know what happened. I had my pipeline just completely devastated in 2020 because I had about everything wrong with the deals I was working on. I had like 2 or 3 restaurants. I had 1 catering company, 2 oil and gas deals, like all either under contract or, on the market, close to under contract. And those markets, just anything in those spaces, just everybody pulled out. And so we lost a lot of deals that year, regrouped. But then it ended up like by the end of 2020 and into 21, the activity started picking up, big time, and people were doing lots of acquisitions. And it turned out that, 21 was a bonanza year of M&A activity. And then 22 was still solid. I think that prices kind of peaked a bit in 21, but prices came down a hair probably in 22, but activity didn't really slow in my world, at least. Like, it's been very busy, and kind of the same in 23. I think that ultimately it still feels like there's more buyers than sellers. And what I am observing is, like, there's this big talk about the baby boomer wave of sellers, the silver tsunami, all the different things you want to call it. But in my opinion, it's not. It's kind of overblown, because I think that the wave of boomer sellers is being outpaced by an even bigger wave of millennial buyers that are learning about this. And I think that there's like mainstream. It kind of started with the business schools, and then it like moved on to social media, and now it's like everybody and their dog wants to buy a business. And I think that you do have a lot of sellers, but I think that when I got into this, I saw that demographic wave of the boomers coming, and I thought, I want to get positioned in front of that and be part of that huge transfer of wealth. And I just thought that was going to be the big driver. But I think there's still kind of like two factors. One is a ton of buyers, and two is a lot of the boomers' businesses. They're holding on to them longer, or they're like not selling them. They're like, some are just going to be closed down, I think, and not all of them are kind of in the. I think that's what people miss, is like they look at the number of firms and then amount of small businesses out there, but I think the majority of them are kind of like sole proprietorships, or they're like they're not what buyers are looking for. Most buyers are looking for the $1 million in EBITDA, or at least $500,000 in EBITDA and up kind of range. And there's a crap load of boomers that are making $100,000, $200,000, but they're working full time. The business is wrapped around them, and they're not. Their plan is just to kind of work forever, or pare it down and liquidate it out. And there's a lot of boomers that run their business like personal piggy banks and lifestyle, businesses, and they get better and better at it as they go. And that means their tax returns look like dog crap when you look at them. But they're expensing all their personal stuff through there, and they like all the perks of ownership, and they're good at tax avoidance. But it just makes their businesses really hard to sell for value. And you have this wave of buyers that's all looking for that quality, clean, above $500,000 earning company. And there's just not as many of those as there are buyers. And so I think that's why the prices have still kind of stayed elevated. It reminds me of housing a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, everybody's like, how is housing still so expensive? Where's the downturn? And it's like, because nobody's like, the supply is still, like, inventory is still low, and as long as there's low inventory and lots of buyers that need it, like, it's just not, it's just not letting prices come down. And so we've seen pretty stable prices the last few years, and we're still kind of limited by especially most of the things when I'm talking, guys, for context, I'm talking about like 7-figure deals. That's really my playground. Is most of the ones I do are between $1 and $10 million, and more than half are SBA loan derived financing. And so that's just for context. I don't do the $80 million deal, and I don't really do the $200,000 deal, but I typically do the 7-figure deals. And so that just kind of sheds light on where I'm coming from here, guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. So essentially there's a disconnect in terms of, there's tsunami of businesses and boomers retiring, but the quality of the businesses that you want, the ones that you actually are acquirable, is small, and the demand is just much higher than that supply. So if we focus on that group, that small group, how do you identify it? What are the profiles of the sellers within that group, that the purchasable or the acquirable business?
Yeah. So I can go into some of those attributes. One of the plays I really like is just getting in the game, getting a business in an industry that you like. And if you can get in the game with like, it's kind of the same thing that private equity does in the middle markets, platform, and then bolt-on strategy. I'm sure y'all are familiar with that. You can do like a miniature version of that in Main Street. And some of these little smaller businesses that you wouldn't really want to buy as a standalone are great bolt-ons but you gotta like kind of be in the game already to take advantage of it. Because like let's throw out an example. Like let's say there's someone down the street that's got 800,000 or 900,000 revenue, and they've got 150,000 of earnings, and you're like, man, by the time I bought that, borrowed money on it, paid a note, all the headache, and there's only a couple employees, and it'd be risky. Like, it's not the acquisition you want for acquisition number one. But if you're already in that industry and you could tell this guy, hey, look, I'm already in this industry. I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to screw it up. Come work for me for a year or two. Bring your clients and customers over. I'm going to pay you X dollars as long as the revenue stays up where it is. So help the transition plan and say, I'm going to give you this much cash now and this much in an earn out over time. And I'm good for it because I'm already in the space doing 5X, 10X or whatever the revenue that you are. Then you can kind of get those easy button solution deals for those sellers that don't have anywhere else to go. And you can absorb their clients, you can absorb their employees and their market share by just kind of being the easy go-to for a lot of those kind of unsellable or less desirable folks, and kind of create that exit plan for them and treat people well and get your name and reputation out there. I think that's a great play to make right now. But for what you were asking, Jay, about like the platform, like you want to buy is I'm saying probably at least $500,000 of EBITDA or SDE earnings. And I don't know if y'all know that language or not, but you'll hear both thrown out. SDE is basically EBITDA plus the owner's pay, perks, benefits, like the owner's, comp plan. When you buy something on an SDE multiple, you got to realize like you've got to go in there and be that operator, fill that owner's shoes. When you buy something on an EBITDA multiple, if it's done correctly, usually that means there's management in place, and you don't have to go in there and be the manager. But buyer beware, like a lot of brokers will mix those terms up or convolute the issue and stuff. But that's what it's really for. Is SDE is more the hands-on owner.
So what is the personality profile or that mental profile for that seller for the platform? What are like the two, or there are 2 or 3 that are like out there, and what drives them? What gets them to sell, and then what drives them to want to sell to a particular buyer?
Yeah, I mean, usually it's like any number of factors, but a lot of it comes down to like burnout. And there's kind of 2 age ranges. So I want to kind of split this answer into 2 answers.
Yeah.
There's kind of like the boomer owner who's in their, I would say like 60s to 70s, that is just thinking about like, when am I going to retire? And a lot of times they're holding on longer and longer in this uncertain world, and they're worried about inflation. So they're like, maybe I need to work a little bit more, before I hang it up. But a lot of times what triggers the boomer owner is like a health scare or a family wake up call or something, where it's a lot of times it's the spouse just saying like, damn it, I'm going to leave you if you don't stop working all the time. What are you doing? I want to travel. I want to enjoy myself. And a lot of these people are like wrapped around their business, workaholics. And it's really like a family or a health thing usually that will trigger, that I call a triggering event to get them serious about selling. And so just being like respectful of that and looking for that. And when you start talking to those owners, kind of like asking them how their family is, asking them how their health is, asking them why, how long do they want to stick around, and you'll get to those answers pretty quickly usually. But there's also a really good seller group that's a little bit under the radar, and I would call those like empty nesters that are a little younger. And there's a lot of folks, I'd say it's a decent percentage of sellers I represent aren't the boomer owners. And this is what surprised me as a broker. A lot of them are like 40s, 50s. And they get to, there's like a major point that it's usually men get to in middle age, where they're like, they were head down focused, raising kids, growing their business, and like it's all about kind of like getting the kids to college. And then as soon as they get out the door and get off to college, they kind of come up for air, and they realize like, that's when a lot of divorces happen. That's when a lot of like things change, because you like build your life all around your kids, and your business is kind of serving your life and your kids. And when your kids get out the door, all of a sudden everything's up in the air. But I've talked to a lot of sellers that tell me, the reason I want to sell is this is all I've been doing for 20 years, 25 years. So maybe they started in their 20s and now they're 50. And they still have lots of energy, and they have lots of knowledge now, and they know how to run a business. But if all they've done is that, and all of a sudden their kids are out of the house, and all of a sudden they can be mobile, the world is kind of opening up to them, and they realize I've got about a good 10, 15 years. If I ever want to do anything else with my life, it's now. And I hear that from people. And so like I just sold an auto shop, and it was a cool business. But he was in that boat. He was just like, you know what? I've done this for 25 years. I just realized like, if it's now or never. I'm just going to keep building trucks my entire life, and that's going to be all I ever do, or it's time for me to like do something else. And a lot of people have dreams that they've kind of put on hold while they raise their family and raise their kids. And now a liquidation event, like an exit, gives them some capital to turn a new chapter in their life. And I want to encourage y'all to not discount. Like I see people on Twitter and other things just thinking like, it's so great, why are they selling it? And like they think it's a scam if they're not, if they're not 80 years old and they're trying to sell their business at 50, that there must be something wrong with it. There must be a scam or something like that. But there's some really good businesses that get sold by that kind of midlife crisis group of sellers as well.
It is so true. Paul, you had a question? You're on mute. You're on mute, Paul.
First, thanks, Jay. Clint, thanks for coming on. When you just mentioned, I have a question I go back to, because I also listened to a couple of podcasts you're on. But you mentioned about the midlife crisis. I wouldn't say I was in midlife. I've actually had more exits than acquisitions, and it's an addiction, and it's fucking amazing. Like It's incredible. So like, if people aren't M&A, they don't know like the exit. It's like how amazing that is, and life changing it can be. So I hear what you're saying about that. One of the things you mentioned on here a minute ago, and even in your podcast or on a podcast you were on, was getting your name out there. Is there any specific ways you think that would resonate with brokers and just in the world of M&A that it's really effective that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just doing the work. Like there's not like a magic bullet on that, but I think it's taking your search seriously to where you are getting a rhythm of in-person networking, reaching out to other brokers and on other deals and stuff, and then just having your act together when you show up. Just, you want to give the appearance that you're a serious buyer. You've got your ducks in a row. You got your financing like ready, your down payment ready. You know what your appetite is. You know what your appetite isn't. And then I would say it's a combination of inquire about if you see a deal that's in your deal box, reach out to that broker. But then when you talk to that broker, always kind of go for that second layer deep. Let them know who you are. You don't always get the deal you inquire about, but say, hey, do you have anything else coming down the pipe that might be in my wheelhouse? Because they do. Like, right now, like I just had my sales meeting with my team this morning, and we looked at our pipeline. I've got 5 new engagements that are not on the market yet that we're like in the process of building a package on and stuff. And I don't tweet about those. I don't talk about those because I don't want 100 inquiries while we were building the presentation and just to create like a workload mess for us. But if we're at lunch or if we're on the phone and talking and you're like, hey, what else you got in the pipe coming down? I would tell you about that one, and I would tell you about some of the others that are out for engagement that are coming soon, I think. And I would try to. There's something about like that being on the phone or being face to face that just really opens you up to like, all right, I'm trying to help solve this person's problem and help them out. And so just kind of getting around them. And the same thing with brokers applies to what I call centers of influence. So in this world, when you're trying to find a deal, besides just looking at all the websites and stuff, you also want to get around networking with connectors. COIs, centers of influence that I like are probably in this order: CPAs, attorneys, wealth managers, commercial real estate agents, insurance agents. Those are all pretty solid. CPA is usually the first to know when someone's thinking about selling their business. And so if you guys can get in a rhythm of getting those folks, like, and I left off bankers. Bankers will always go to lunch with you too. So I would say bankers are in the middle of that pack. Grab lunch with those folks that are doing business with the small business owners, and introduce yourself and see if they've got any connection to make with somebody that might be interested in selling their business.
So you're just cold outreaching CPAs, just say, hey, I'm in the community. This is what I do. I'd love to connect and build a relationship. Or do you have a specific hook for these center of influence guys?
Yeah, it's a little different pitch depending on who you're going to talk to. But
yeah,
a CPA is one example would be, hey, Mr. and Mrs. CPA, my name's Clint. I'm working on buying a business. I don't have one right now. I know that my current CPA isn't who I'm going to need once I'm a business owner, and I'm just trying to like get a lay of the land of who's doing work, small business accounting. Wanted to see if we could grab lunch, just kind of get to know you. And so you're kind of like positioning yourself as a potential customer of theirs, but then you're also, when you meet them, you tell them your story and why you're looking and what you're looking for. And then that may trigger them. CPAs are a great person to get a referral from, but they're one of the hardest to get one from because they have a negative incentive to refer.
Yes.
Usually when someone sells their business, they lose a customer.
Yeah.
And so they would be more comfortable if they liked you and they thought that if this person buys this business, then I might be able to keep them as a client because we click and they need a CPA. And so then maybe they can think, you know what, I know old Bob's going to be retiring. I'd like him to sell to this guy, Jay, because we're already friends. We're already going to lunch. He said he might use me as a CPA, and then I don't lose a client in this referral.
Yeah.
And so you always got to kind of put yourself in their shoes and what's in it for me, and kind of position yourself as as an asset to them as well.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that. It's interesting you say that, Clint, because I actually asked my bookkeeper, one of my bookkeepers and CPAs, what would be the best way if I was to approach you to buy a business? What would that look like? And he said a couple of years ago would be a negative way about going about it. And he mentioned also that because you have to think about it, they'd be losing a client. But nowadays, it's almost like there's so much to go around where and so busy that if they lost one, it wouldn't be the end of the world necessarily either. And so it is very intriguing. But I would definitely, if they've been doing the books for years and it's really good, I wouldn't necessarily mind just keeping them on either. I mean, if you have many businesses, you might have to integrate. But that's a good point that you make about approaching CPAs. And I think what stopped me so much from doing it is that perfect approach. I mean, I think you're just saying just going out and doing it is like
Cool.
do it and fail, and then recalibrate, right?
Mm-hmm.
James, you had a question?
Yes. Thank you for coming on today, Clint. I just got a question. You mentioned at the beginning you own some businesses yourself. And so I was wondering, how do you determine, like, so background, I own a handful of small businesses myself. When I started, I basically tried to make any opportunity in front of me work. I wasn't very selective because I wanted to do this. And now I'm being a bit more selective about what I go for. How do you determine what you want to invest in versus what you want to sell? Like, is there a conflict of interest there sometimes? Do you have a set buy box that you very well defined for your deals? And then we're talking about centers of influence, but as a broker, how do most of your deals come about that you actually sell? Is that through your established Twitter account, or do you also do the COI method, or are there other ways that those deals kind of come about to you?
Yeah, both. So we get the leads for the seller leads that we get are kind of spread out between referrals from past clients, referrals from centers of influence, direct messages through social media channels, search engine, like just people Googling, business brokers and finding us, or through the IBBA or Biz by Sell websites and places like that where we have presences. So we get a lot just from social media, the internet, and referrals. And that's kind of the main way we get our leads. As far as the other question on conflict of interest and how do my deal box and things like that, like that's, I don't think there's a conflict of interest, because my situation is like I'm only allowing myself to run one business at a time, and I'm like not able to buy a 100% basis of a deal, because it's like I don't have time and energy to, like, I'm already over bandwidth with everything I'm doing, and so for me, I have a strict kind of criteria of how I'll participate, and really within the last year, that's started to come into focus. I feel like I was like you, James, with in the past, where it was almost just like opportunistically stuff would pop up, and I would try to make anything work. And some of the equity positions I got into were almost accidental. It would be like I got a deal with the perfect buyer. It's on the ropes. There's an equity gap. The equity gap is about the same as my commission would be. And if I don't do this, that's going to go away, and nobody's going to get anything. And you're just like, do the math, like, all right, do I want to end up in this deal or just have nothing? And I did a couple like that where I would like fill an equity gap or be opportunistic like that. But those typically haven't been real winners for me. And I've just been like, what, I need to get focused and stop screwing around with like opportunistic things as they come up, and really define my criteria. And so I've developed like my own kind of set of rules of what I'll play on or not. But the big ones are like, I've got kind of a size criteria, and then I've got like an operator criteria. Like I want to see an operating partner that's the buyer as someone I know, like, and trust, and that I think is going to crush it and knock it out of the park. And a lot of what I do is kind of betting on the buyer. So if it's a business I like every business, but I'll only get interested in investing or participate if I really like the buyer that's coming into it as well, and that they need an equity partner. And then I have a way I could structure it to where it's just like the model that's become popularized that I was kind of helped start fan the flames of on Twitter is like the money partner with a operating partner and an SBA loan structure where it's a minority owner, majority owner. Are y'all familiar with that? Like, we need to talk through that structure.
Yeah. What is the ideal capital stack the structure that you found so far? Because we've seen it all. We've seen the acquirer, we've seen the traditional search, we've seen the independent search. What is the one that works for you?
So I like to be an equity partner to self-funded searchers, and it's a different model than the traditional search model. And basically with self-funded, the operating partner that signs a personal guarantee on the SBA loan is sticking their neck out there for all the debt.
Yeah.
And they end up with majority interest, but they're the only one signing the PG.
Correct.
And then I'm putting money in to have an equity piece that I'm going to keep below 20%, which is the SBA threshold of anybody 20% or more on the capital stack has to be a PG on the note. And so I'm going to buy in with a step up in basis, usually of like 1.5 to 2, which means if they need, let's say it's a $1 million deal and they need $100,000 down. If I provide that 100,000, I'm going to want 15% ownership or 18% or 19%, but it's not going to be 10%. That's the step up part. And then I didn't even know about pref until like the last year, and I started seeing like this being a thing because I'm patient, and I've gone into a deal with no pref, and now I'm like, sweet, I can get pref too, and like that's the structure that I'm gravitating towards now. So then it's like if you do the step up and you do pref, which would be, you get your money out first before the operating partner can take home any distribution, plus interest, and then it converts to common stock, and you're all just getting pro rata distributions after that point. That gets you your capital out plus interest. And I really like the incentive alignment around that for the operator to kind of get you your money back so that they can make more money and make more distributions. So that's kind of the structure I like. And then I will, if there's more equity than I'm comfortable with, or if the equity needs are going to push it up to be like over 20% with the step up, I'll usually grab a friend and go into it with one other person. I try not to do like groups of 10 investors and crap like that. I think it's overcomplicated and it's too many chefs in the kitchen, but if I can get the SBA loan to be the bulk of the deal, and the operator to be the sole personal guarantor on that, and then I get adequate capital from me and another person or two at max to get the down payment and the operating cash if there's not enough operating capital in the deal, and whatever just post-close liquidity needs are, like we're going to provide that as a group and get all those benefits of the step up, the pref, and then we've got kind of a standard set of docs that's kind of like the operating agreement and the buy-sell agreement for these. This is really important if you're going to do the minority. If you're going to do the minority position, you got to get really good at the operating agreement and the buy-sell, because you can get screwed if you don't like mind your dot your I's and cross your T's on that stuff.
What are some of the terms? What are some of the covenants in the operating agreement that you always make sure that they're there?
So I've got kind of a list of them. I can pull it up. I always want tax distributions. Are y'all familiar with that?
No, go ahead.
So that's like if you're a minority interest holder, and let's say the company makes $1 million in profit, but they don't distribute any out, and it's an S corp that's a pass through to the owners, and you're on the capital stack, then all of a sudden you can have a big tax bill that you didn't receive any money for, and so you're actually like losing cash flow by being a minority interest holder in this business, and that sucks. And so in the operating agreement, we'll put some threshold that it might be 30% or something like that is going to be distributed to owners to cover the tax bill. And so at least you've got enough coming in on your K1, you know, on your distribution that it's going to cover any tax bill due to you. That's a big one. You also want like there to be a threshold of like super majority. So you want your operating partner, let's say they own 75% of the company. You want some things to require 76% agreement or some threshold that's like a super majority where they at least need to get you or one of the other minority investors to agree. And for the things that require super majority, that's going to be changing the compensation structure of the operator.
Yeah.
So you don't want that operator to be able to like give themselves infinite raises or bonuses and stuff like that and suck the cash out to themselves. You want to like, let me just pull it up so I can.
Yeah.
I got a list of these. Oh yeah, financial reporting, that's a given for me. It's like I'm usually going to require a third party, like my CPA or my bookkeeper, to do the books. And I have them all on QuickBooks Online where I can have like instant real-time access to the financials. I want drag along, tag along rights, which look that up if you're unfamiliar, but it just means like if somebody wants to buy the business and they want to buy 75% of the business, they can't just buy your friend's 75% and leave you, you know, out in the cold. Like you get to be participating in any deals, tag along or drag along. Limits on borrowing. So like I'll set some threshold of like if this operator wants to borrow above a certain amount one time or cumulative, like they have to get a sign off from the minority partners. And then in the buy sell, I usually get like what I call an exit lever, like and sometimes that'll be after a lockup period of like 24 or 36 months, where one of my like life philosophies is like I don't ever want to be a partner with someone that doesn't want to be my partner, and I don't want to be stuck with someone that I don't want to be their partner. You know? And so you can't always structure these things to where you could just sell it on day 2 of ownership. But you could have in the buy-sell agreement that after a certain amount of time passes, that I can say, hey, I want out. And we've got a process here that you have to buy me out. Like if I'm the minority holder and Jay, you're the majority, I say, I want out. You're like, okay, well, we've already got a predefined way we value the company, either by formula or valuation process defined. And then if you don't have enough cash to buy me out, then we've got an agreed upon note structure. So you have the option, all right, my share is worth 200,000 now, according to the formula. Jay, you going to give me 200 grand, or you can start making payments on it, but you got to have me out over the next 3 years, but I'm getting 10% interest monthly payments or something like that. And then it's up to you. But if you I can convert my equity into a note or into a lump sum cash. And that's kind of my lever I can pull. Nice. And then I can also give the operator that same lever. So it's like a mutual thing. And then I can say, hey, also, you want to kick me to the curb? Go for it. Like if you don't enjoy having me as an advisor partner, because I want to be like, not just a financial drag on the company. Like I want to be an asset to the company. That's one of the other philosophies I have is I want to do at least like quarterly meetings, give them every advantage I can, be an advisor, be a mentor, be a friend, and not just be a check writer and go away, you know?
Yeah.
And so like if they ever feel like they wish I wasn't their partner anymore and I'm not adding value or whatever, and they just want to like get rid of me. Well, pay me back with interest. That's my pref situation, and then buy my equity with the agreed upon formula of the buy sell, and I'll go away.
That's awesome. That's a great way to. So you do that at year 3 or year 5? What's your?
At 24 or 36 months is typically
Okay.
the start, but so far that hasn't been executed, or
Yeah.
like I haven't had to do that. But I've had a deal in the past where I wished I had that and didn't, and that sucks.
Do you have a proactive process or intentional process of connecting with these operators or finding these operators? And then what would be a process to qualify them? So number 1 is how do you seek them out? And then 2 is how do you qualify them?
I've never really had to do that.
Got it.
I could come up with some ideas on that, and I think I know how to do that. But
Yeah.
It's like for me, there's so many, just being in this business every day where this is what we do for a living, is we do deals, and anytime you talk to me, I've got probably 10 to 15 active deals going at a given moment. And I don't have enough capital to like do much participation. So I'm like, if one a year becomes one I participate in, I'm happy. And that's, to me, they just appear like the stars align, where I was like, I happen to have $100,000 liquid that I need a home for. I happen to have a great business coming together with a buyer that's, I think, is an amazing buyer, and values align, and like needs. The stars seem to align as often as they need to, which is, I feel like there's more opportunities for me to invest in these than I have money to invest in them. So it just kind of works out where I don't ever like put a deal under contract and go hunting for a buyer or an operating partner. Like I just don't do that. Don't need to do that. Never done that.
Adam, do you have a question?
Just kind of on that related thing, if we were to like reach out to you or other brokers to be in that situation as more of the money partner, just kind of background, I'm an anesthesiologist, so like I've always been in an employed position, so making the jump, not in the business side of it. So some of that investment, more hands-on investment rather than just straight LP, real estate type stuff. Have you ever, paired somebody with a buyer rather than you investing, I guess? And how would you approach yourself or another broker in that type of situation that you're looking for minority purchasing or something?
So is the question of how would I go about if I was the operator looking for the investment partners, or is it how would I?
No, the opposite.
Okay.
So if you're coming across 10 people a year, but you're only investing in one per year that needs capital, how would you recommend looking for that? Would you recommend like talking to yourself or other brokers? I mean, like, hey, look, if you have a good buyer that either you find something that's a little too big for them or whatever, I'd be interested in investing with them.
Yeah, there's a lot. I get hit up for that a lot. There's a lot of capital out there looking to do those, to be the money partner on these. There's more of them than there are operating partners. The ones that I see like doing well at getting into these deals and doing multiple of them are kind of building a name for themselves within a niche, usually, because you want, a lot of times, these a good operator that needs that money partner right now. I think the ecosystem looks like, if you need to raise 100, 200, 300 grand, there's 10 times the amount of people willing to write you that check than you need. And that's cool for the operating partners right now. But who's going to get the deal is usually someone that they like, on a values aligned level, but also feel like they can add some brain trust value to it. And so they've made a name for themselves in the space. And so a lot of times that'll be like someone who's well known in landscaping is getting to be the money partner on landscaping acquisitions, or someone that knows auto shops is getting to push money in on auto shops deals because they can. Now you have a real good advisor, a mentor. And so I would kind of, if you want to be that money partner on deals, I would try to kind of build your personal reputation and brand within a niche, a subcategory of the industry, and kind of put yourself out there as the go-to for that space. But then you could also, like, you know, talk to brokers, just put out blanket stuff on Twitter or wherever else and hope that something swims into the net that's perfect, and that might happen. But the best way to get people like consistently thinking of you first is to build that reputation within a category.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I always tell the guys, you know, go into the industry association meetings, go to the industry trade shows, connect with, you know, so I think there are two sides. There's one, the industry deep, and then the other side, which is the acquisition. So be in both and show up. Are there any events that you go to constantly that must attend event for you?
I go to tons of events. Yeah, I mean, if I'm a buyer, I would definitely hit up the industry shows for the industries that you're interested in. That's probably the mother lode of opportunities, is just getting around the bar or getting around the trade show booth, the trade show floor, in the industries you're looking at. But for me, like, I'm also like, I go to the business broker conferences, the M&A conferences. I go to, like, I'm going to go to Main Street Summit with Brent B. Shore in November in Missouri. I spoke at SM Bash in Austin. A lot of these are like buyer centric, holdco type conferences, but I don't know that they're that valuable for you guys, because it's kind of like a bunch of buyers grab assing and high fiving and stuff, and it's gold for me because I'm a service provider in that space. But I almost like make fun of the buyers there, because I'm like, guys, if you're a holdco that buys plumbing companies, holdco conference is fun, but it's not where you're going to get anything done. Like, the plumbing conference is where you get something done. You know, like, that's where you need to go.
You're the target. You're the target if you're going to the buyer conference as a buyer. If you want to go where the sellers are. Paul, you had a question?
Yeah, so it's two questions. One, and you named this on a podcast around today too, and let me know if this works. But where was it at? So, communicating your ability to close, is it just a matter of having a letter from the bank saying that this person is, leveraged to do this type of deal, this amount of money? And then the second question, if I can find it in my notes, like frozen, is there any particular way where you find, you mentioned operators a couple of different times. Is there any way, is it just a matter of using the number two in the business? Because, my deal size is 500,000 to 2.5 million EBITDA. Is it a matter of just saying, okay, they have a team using that number two in place? Or is there a particular way you find operators that you can trust?
I think they're out there. I think that there's a lot of folks that want to buy a business that would be a great operator, but they're a little intimidated by the deal side of it, by the capital raising and just navigating the transaction. And if you're good at the capital side and navigating the transaction side, and you can come alongside someone that's got real operational chops, that you could almost find them first and have them in your hip pocket. And as soon as you get, like, as you're hitting up brokers and looking at deals, as soon as you get to the buyer seller meeting, like, bring them with you, whether that's a Zoom call or a face-to-face meeting, but you're kind of running the deal process up to that point. And so I would put out some feelers, local and internet, that says, hey, I'm looking for this type of business, looking for a potential partner that's got operational experience. You can be working for one now or whatever, but I'll grab you when I get one lined up, and just kind of get to know them, get them to like you, know you, trust you, and then kind of just you could keep one or two or three of those people like on the back burner for you, and then just bring them in at the appropriate time.
One of the stories that I heard Richard Branson does is that before he goes into any industry, or as he's going to an industry, he goes to the biggest competitor or the biggest two competitors and hires the COO of that competitor and give him equity. And that's pretty much like that COO is not gonna go and buy United or buy an American, but he can build you your next version airline. And so I thought it was clever because you can go out and network and have coffee dates and have lunches with those people at a continuous, especially if you're focused on an industry. I think that's where that industry specification comes in place, because you get to know the players and you get to know their talent, and you can literally just go and connect with that talent as you go. So now Clint, if we drop you in Florida and we give you 250K, what would you do to build your network? What would you do to find a business to acquire? And what business would you acquire? Like just an example for.
Yeah, so if I just got dropped in Florida with 250K and wasn't gonna go try to buy a business, like first off, I would select I would be open-minded to different industries, so I could opportunistically seize an opportunity. The thing I'll caution you about industry focus is there's a crap load of businesses that like don't fit any industry. Like,
yes.
They're just wild, random things. Like I went to one Friday that's just a one of a kind. Like there is no industry for this, but this lady is doing, I don't know, 7-8 million revenue in San Antonio. Christmas tree, like rental, basically. Like she does B2B. Like she has a factory like floor, and she decorates trees and wreaths for these commercial clients, and then does like 3-year leases where she puts them in their business lobbies and then takes them down and stores them, and puts them in their business lobbies and takes them down and stores them. And it's like, who the frick thinks of that? Like if you were thinking like, what industry am I going to go into? You wouldn't think Christmas tree rentals, right? Because it's so random. It's just like a random thing, but it's a kick-ass business. It's such a good business.
And it's recurring.
Exactly. And so you want to be open-minded for like, if you get in on that, like, and that fits your, you want to do that. But so stay open-minded, but I would also go fishing in a certain industry. So in Florida, I would look at like what's got tailwinds for the next 10, 20 years in Florida. And in Florida, like I really like, there's so many people with money moving there that are like, they just want the services. Like I've looked at some deals, like putting up the screens around the lanais on the pool in Florida, that like you have to redo those every so many years. And so many houses have pools with those screens around them. We don't have those in Texas, but they have them in Florida. Like somebody that just replaces those in a county where there's in-migration. So you've got like more people moving there, more pools being built, wealth, money, the aging demographics where they're not going to do it themselves, no chance. And it's just going to be this like gold mine of reoccurring revenue, not really recurring.
Yeah.
Like I would look at industries like that, and no app is going to replace that screen. Like it needs to be done. And I like that physical, tangible aspect of it. So I'd probably like pick a couple scenarios like that and find out what industries are these in. Let's go to all their trade shows. Let's have conversations with all these owners, And I would call owners and ask for referrals. This is one of the best things you can do to get a business owner to tell you they want to sell is you don't ask them if they want to sell. You say, hey, I'm looking to get into this industry. Do you know anyone that might be thinking about selling? I know you're well connected in this industry more than me. I'm kind of the new guy. And if they want to sell, they'll be like, actually,
Yep.
me. Whereas if you had gone head on and said, hey, will you sell? They're always cagey and they don't want. So go indirect. Ask them.
It's actually in our seller script, guys. It's already there. Who do you know is thinking about selling these days? You know, that's
JG. That's JGPT. Is that the Joker on the streets right now, Jay?
Yeah. Yes, that's the first question we ask sellers. Who do you know is thinking about selling these days? You know, thank you for thinking about it. How about yourself? When you plan on selling? You know, that's really the next question because you're gonna sell at some point. When you plan on selling, and then how long have you been in the business? How did you end up here? If you were to sell, what would that be? What would you do next? And then you just engage in that conversation. But that's awesome that you mentioned that. So now you hit up the sellers. What else? The next thing?
I don't know. I guess it depends on the hypothetical if I need a job or not. Like if I need a job, I might go try to work for one while I'm searching.
Nice.
That's a good size one with an older owner and become like second command if I can. That's going to give you an opportunity to buy that company, and it's also going to give you massive credibility and connections in the industry. So I'd consider that as well. It just kind of depends on the situation.
How about the brokers? You didn't mention brokers. And then how about the vendor ecosystem within that industry? Because a lot of these industries will have vendors that will know, have a lot of those relationships. Do you ever kind of like, would you target those as well?
No, that's a great point. A lot of the distributor houses, like for trades companies, they know who's probably needs to sell or is going to sell before almost anyone else. Because they have like their internal tea leaves they can read, and they know the order history and what's going on, and they hear the texts and the owners bitching when they come in, and like they know like what's up. So that's a great place to hang out is the parts houses, and whoever's selling consistently into those companies.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Darren had a question, side question. Knowing as you as a great boutique broker with great businesses and are priced right, are there places that you like your type of brokers hang out network? Where do you hang? Like, is there a place where you guys hang out? Brokers who actually are active, who do more than one transaction a year.
Yeah, I mean, if you look for like most of us hang out in our industry trade groups, and then we form like ad hoc mastermind groups and stuff. So I'm in 2 best practices groups with that are scattered across the country that are just high performing, like killer good brokers. And we all found each other through the IBBA. And so if you go to ibba.org, International Business Brokers Association, and you look for all the brokers that are members, but then there's like a subset. That's probably 3,000 or so. Or no, they're not at 3,000. There may be 2,000, but like their conference is getting pretty big. Like it's over 1,000 people go to their conference now. And then out of those, about half of those brokers have a designation called the CBI, the Certified Business Intermediary. And to get a CBI, you have to like pass classroom learning, pass a test, and have so many years and deals experience, and they verify it and vet it. So you've got like so much reps under your belt. So I'm a CBI, and like anybody you see, it's like a little shield that says CBI on the IBBA website, and then I think it's on BizBuySell too. Look for CBIs.
Nice.
Anybody that's a CBI is like usually a professional deal maker that is doing some volume and takes their career seriously, and they're not just dabbling in it. the brokers that you hate the most are the ones that are like, they're a realtor that
Yeah.
dabbles, like once a year in a business deal, but they don't know how to freaking do it, like, and they just make a mess of the deal. And you want the ones that like, that's all they do is broker business transactions, and they've been doing it long enough that they know what they're doing. And yeah, I'd say that website is probably your best way to find them.
So Miles said, with a business where the owner is heavily involved, what should we look in terms of whether we should buy or not? Ability to hire their position or feel on the stability of the business without the key owner. So like I guess it depends on the business. What do you think of a business that has like heavy, like where the owner is super involved, or maybe they are involved, but they're telling you they're only spending 15 hours a week, even though it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I had a whole, like, I don't know, 18-point thread about like smoking out if the business is over dependent on the owner.
Yeah.
And so I had a whole lot of points to that. And if you go on Twitter and just search for it, like it's it went pretty viral. I think it's like how to spot or over reliance on the selling owner, something like that. Just look that up. But if you get in a situation where you have a heavily involved owner and you're wondering, should I buy this business or not? Like, a lot of it is going to come down to your site visit. So like, go visit the owner, and you want to like really get them to walk through. So you don't just ask like yes or no questions or short answer questions. You don't say, how many hours a week do you work? Like, that's a bad question, because they'll just say, oh, I work 20 hours a week. What you want to ask is, walk me through a day in the life. What's it like to be you? Walk me through a typical day. Like, when do you get up? And like, go in detail, because then it's just not a short answer. Now you got to get them thinking about, like, walk me through yesterday, and like, what was your day like? And if you have this, the owners that are scary are the ones that like, they don't have a good answer to that, because they're just like, well, I don't know, every day is different, like,
Yeah.
I just always, because they're this frantic, usually wrapped around them, and they're the hub and spoke kind of owner that everybody's always blasting them with questions, and they're just reactionary. And that usually means you got kind of a basket case of a business that revolves around the owner. And you've got to really get comfortable with, like, you're going to need to be that person if you buy that business. Like, you're going to have to be the hub in a hub and spoke system until you can get it to be not that.
Yeah.
The ones that I like the best is when they answer that question, like, what's a day in the life like? And they're like, oh, like, well, Fridays I do the paychecks from 2 to 4, and that's done. The other days, Monday through Thursday, I come in about 10. I've got a meeting I always do at 10 o'clock with so-and-so. We check out this or that. And they have this like routine that's consistent, and they're not the chief fire putter outer for every single person in the whole place. But if you sense they've got a good, like, established routine, even if they're working full time and even if they're important, like, routine is a green flag, because it means there's enough systems there where they're just not hair on fire reacting all day long. And so I'm looking for patterns and routine. And then once I know what they do in their routine, if I feel like I can do that stuff, then I like it. Or if I feel like I can hire that, I like it. But if it's like, the ones that scare me are like, they're a single point of failure. Like, there's a company that there's an engineering part of the job, and they're the only one that knows how to do the engineering part. They're the only one that knows how to bid the work. They're the only one that answers the calls from the B2B customer for the $100,000 sale, and they've been in the industry for 20 years and have this huge reputation. Like, those are the ones that scare me. And so I wouldn't make your line of demarcation of like how many hours they work, or like, are they a hands-off owner, a hands-on owner? That doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It matters is like whatever their hands are on are things that are like consistently doable for you versus uniquely built around their own genius. You know, that's hard.
Perfect. Very helpful. Thank you. I'll check
I
out the
appreciate
Twitter.
it, Clint. I appreciate, Clint. I want to honor your time. Thank you very much for joining us. And you know, you represent sellers all over Texas. Any other states that you work, or you're national?
So we went national last year, so we're now doing deals all over the place. But we're still strongest in Texas, but we can represent buyers or sellers anywhere in the country. And if you ever need like somebody on your side of the table as a buyer, like we have a buyer advisory program now too called Buyer Sherpa. So like we could jump into a deal with you and help you negotiate, you know, value, negotiate, project manage, close your deal. So we're doing that now buy side, and then we also do, of course, the sell side engagements with sellers.
And you also have that list, an email list where a deal that can be good, or what was the name?
Probably a good deal.
Probably a good deal.
Just sell me your business. My probably a good deal shirt's on right now, but it's probably a good deal.com. You can sign up and you'll get all the deals that we represent. We'll send down to that email list. And then some of my other broker friends or other people that they've got a good deal and they just haven't found a buyer for it yet. If my rule is like, if you can sell me on it, then I can get you a buyer. Like I'll vouch for you, but I have a pretty high bar. So it's like, if another broker is like, hey, here's one, I'm like, I'm grilling them, making sure, would I buy this deal? Do I think this is good? And that's why it's called probably a good deal, is like, I know enough that I'm like, this is probably good, you know, good source. It all looks good, but do your own due diligence.
And I'll post your contact information in our Facebook group and WhatsApp group, and I'll also put in that thread from earlier, the seller thread. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much for joining us, Clint. Hopefully we'll see you one more time.
Very
Have
cool.
a good one, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Clint. Thanks, Jay.